Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And one of the coolest things about meeting people is the more people I meet, the more I know that I need to have more and more conversations with those people. So today we're going to talk to Judd Armstrong. He is an Australian entrepreneur, moved to the U.S., got here, had nothing more than kind of a wedding ring, started a retail job, $10 an hour, tons of credit card debt. And in that position, he didn't allow himself to stop dreaming. He chose to start dreaming, start thinking, what could I do to add value to other people? What would help me? And I bet there's other people who could benefit from that same thing. And so in the process of doing that, he created a massive company. You may have heard of them. Jaybird was the type of headphones. Sold it to Logitech in 2016 for $95 million, which means he probably saw like 5 million of that. I'm just kidding. I'm going to find out how much. Most of the time, big sales. So anyway, it's just awesome. Now his goal is to help help create 1,000 amazing millionaires, right? So he's satisfied. He accomplished something, but he's not satisfied. He wants to do more and wants to help you get there. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There's no way we're going to be able to cover everything. So please go follow him on Instagram at Judd Armstrong, and the O in Armstrong is a 0 instead of a O. So just keep that in mind. And then you can go to juddarmstrong.com as well, or unlisted.io. So anyways, super excited here. Judd, go ahead and share your story, how you got started, why you're even in America right now. What was the dream when you got here, and how'd you make that happen for yourself?
Yeah, sure. Sam, I'm excited to be here, man. We've got so much we could talk about, so let's get straight into it. When we start out in life, we don't know who we are. We really haven't discovered and found out what we're capable of, or even our identity. That has to be worked out over time. And there's some fundamentals to who we are that determines how we understand what our potential can be, right? So not really knowing what I wanted to do, my dad asked me in high school, he's like, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said to him, I'd like to do landscaping because I wanted to be outside. I didn't like the idea of being under some fluorescent lights and sitting at a desk and just turning into a hunchback. No one wants to be doing that. So I wanted to be a landscaper. And he said, that'd be great. You won't, find true financial independence in that kind of occupation because it's fairly minimal in its pay. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. And so I thought, well, I like creative stuff. My best subject in high school was art, and I really enjoyed art. So I actually was hopeless in science. I actually canned science because in my high school, you could actually drop one of the subjects you didn't want and double down on another one if you wanted to. So I did that. So I actually painted my way into university. I wasn't that bright. I was pretty average. And anyway, so eventually I decided I'll go be an Indonesian translator because in Australia, Indonesia is the very next country across. And there was a lot of focus on doing business with Indonesia at the time. So I thought I'll be a translator. So I went to university and ended up finding that I had to do an international business degree to do this language course for Indonesian. And turns out that I love marketing and the idea of connecting dots for the average, for the person out there who's not even expecting that they need something, and then to actually show them something that they truly need in their life, and they go, whoa, yeah, I actually need this in my life, is really, really cool. So then I actually went and started selling washing machines as my first job. And I was thinking here that I was going to graduate from university and be like, like the marketing force behind Pepsi or some kind of big consumer brand. And I was excited about that. And then the best I could do was a washing machine salesman job. But these were high-end washers. These were like twice the price at least of anything else out there. So when everyone would come in, when your washing machine breaks down, if you've ever experienced that, it's not really something you really want to focus on. Just like Sam, you said you're moving house this weekend. It's not something you really want to do, right? You just want to get it done. So people were coming in here a little frustrated into the store, and they would see the price tag of these washing machines that we had, and they would be grabbing their child, not by the hand, but by the forearm, and pulling them out the store before I could get to them, right? So it was a challenge. And I eventually worked out that as someone is getting out of their car, I need to be heading towards the front door so that I can at least have a conversation with them. And what they didn't know was that the average washing machine in Australia was all plastic. It would last about 6 to 8 years. It was really, really poor quality. And then these washing machines that we had, they were from America, imported from America, big stainless steel. You know how everyone does it in America? They're big, heavy duty. It's a work of engineering art inside this washing machine, all stainless steel. And, we had a warranty that was 20 years on these things. So I would actually pull out a big piece of paper and I'd write in big print, like an inch size print. Okay. So you've got your Fisher and Paykel was like the competitive brand. And I'd say it's like $800 and you'd get 8 years. That's $100 a year. Then there's ours, and ours was like $60 to $80 a year. I think it was $80 a year. So it was cheaper in the long run to have ours, even though it was more expensive. And so I'd staple my card to it and I'd say, take this, go back to that other washing machine that you're looking at. And when you're ready to get the washing machine you really need, come back and we'll sort you out. And so I'd be letting people out the door all the time. There was no hard sell on my part. I was just educating them. And I walked back to my desk, and my boss, he was getting so upset because I wasn't selling anything for the first month. And here I am, this new out of school. And he gave me a hard time. He's like, Judd, you are not selling anything here, man. This is not good. I said, boss, don't worry about it. They'll be back. Trust me. And so then I went back to the break room half the time. I'd just be pacing back and forth. I'm like, are they going to come back? I don't know if they're going to come back. Please come back. And eventually, what terminology we use nowadays is building a funnel, right? So eventually I had all these people that I'd made contact with, made friends with, helped give them a bit of education, and then sent them on their way for them to make their own decision. And that's powerful, right? You got to enable people with the information that they need to make their own decision so that they can own it. And after about a week or so, they would all start coming back, and all the other salespeople were blown away that all these people were coming to ask for me. So nowadays that's more common, but back in those days, it was very much a hard sell kind of environment. So something that I learned early on was, wow, you just got to let people own their own decisions and let them give them the information they need to make decisions. So that was really an eye opener for me, and it really has molded the way that I approach business. So met my wife in Australia. I had nothing to my name other than a beautiful old restored car. It was like a Chevy SS, but it was called a Holden Monaro in Australia from 1971. You should Google it if you check it, if you ever have a moment. But they're beautiful cars. And I sold that to get a wedding ring for my wife Miriam, and came over to the States with nothing but that wedding ring and some clothes. Put the ring on her finger, and now she's got my car on her finger. And I'm working for $10 an hour and trying to get something started. And I'd racked up about $30,000 in credit card debt, trying to do something. And when you look at your dreams and your aspirations, sometimes it's really hard to work out what those are going to be for your life. The most common question I get when I'm talking to people about what they want to do in life is they're like, I don't know what it is for me in life. I can't put my finger on what it is. And as you're talking about that kind of thing with people, Sam, what have you found to be the biggest thing that holds people back?
Honestly, I think it's this is a really deep level. It's not surface. They wouldn't know this, but I think it's that they care too much about what other people think. And so they don't allow themselves to do what they actually think they're good at. And they're looking outside of themselves for validation about what they should be doing. And they don't recognize what they're actually good at. For instance, right? So I work in a career where I recruit people, and my objective is to help them, like yours, build multi-million-dollar businesses. And initially, when you pitch them kind of the widget, you could say that the company plan, then they're like, no, I don't think that's me. I'm like, okay, which part of it's not you? Helping people, being kind, being integritous, helping people identify what they need, educating. Like, people think that what they're doing is selling an object, or let's say you're an engineer or you're an IT person. You think that what you're getting paid for is to actually perform the function. They can train a monkey to do the function. Why they're paying you is because your team camaraderie. If you suck at being a team member, but you're the best dang programmer ever, you get fired, right? Because it has nothing to do with your skill level. It has to do with how well do you keep and create the culture and perpetuate the culture. And so people don't recognize why they're actually getting paid. They think they're being paid for the skill, when really they're being paid for who they are. And so they need to recognize who they are and then find something where they can express that, and they're satisfied expressing who they are. And so I think it's just a different perspective on what they're actually being paid for and what their actual gift is.
That's a very good point. Yeah. That what I've always thought, that one of the biggest points to determine your success in life is how you can work with other people. And that's really what one component of what you just said. That's a really good point. Yeah. So like, I think one of the easiest things for me was to build this Jaybird, this worldwide movement of wireless headphones. But the hardest thing before that was to believe that I could do that. It's actually, when you put in the work, it's just like time is just a sequence of events. And when you string those events together, you get to an outcome. It's just factual, right? So if you put yourself and apply yourself to the work, it will get done. But the thing is, most people just can't believe that it's possible for them. When we're little, from the age of 0 to 7, life gives us an answer, or it gives us a word to our life, and it's either yes or no. If you've grown up in a household where your parents say, hey, life is pretty tough, you better get a safe job, make sure you get a good education and tuck into a nice corporate environment. Don't put yourself out there too far because you might fail. Don't want to try anything too risky. You've just gotten a no for your life, and that's built into your subconscious programming. And it turns out that 95% of what we do, believe, feel, and think is driven by our subconscious. So you're a creation of your family and that environment that you've grown up in. Whereas if you've grown up with a parent that is, entrepreneurial and is not afraid to take a risk and to live life by the heart, then life is more of a yes for you. So what if you have been given a no? And we all have some factors of no in our life. It's not like we have a clean slate, yes or no, but if you've got more no than yes, how do you get beyond that? And that is what most people are held by. Most people are held by that fear of, as you say, what people are going to think. They're afraid of starting small. They're afraid of taking a risk and failing. And even though they hear all these really great principles on social media and other places, like, we're going to fail, you're going to fail your way to success. Yeah, I hear that, but I don't feel it in here. That's because your subconscious is just overriding that. You can't overcome that subconscious by the front of your brain, by your conscious mind. So how do you change that? Well, here's the thing. It turns out that because 95% of what we do is governed by our subconscious program, and because that was built in our age 0 to 7 time frame, like, kids, when they cross the street, they're in this daydream, right? They don't understand what's going on around them. So that they're actually, you need a parent to help a kid cross the street during that age. Why is that? Because they're in theta brainwave state, which is like a hypnosis state. Because they're just sucking all the information in, and they do, through that process, learn that roads can be dangerous. But it turns out that, Sam, you and I, when we went off to sleep last night, we actually updated and we rewrote our subconscious mind with the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs, and those emotions, and everything that we carried with us through the day is just layered on top and recoded into our subconscious. So every single day we rewrite that and we reinforce the things that we think about, right? So when we wake up in the morning, we do the same thing, because we're going in through a theta brainwave state, which is that hypnosis state. And then when we wake up, we're phasing back out through theta brainwave state as well. Those are the two places where we can really change our life. And that's why people of faith are told to pray before you go to sleep and as you wake up. You're priming your mind with the thoughts and the feelings and the desires that you have in your heart to create that life for yourself. And yes, there's also divine help there as well, but you've got to create what's in the mind. There's a spiritual creation of life before there's a physical creation of life. And that's a really important principle. And if you understand that, you can create whatever you want for yourself. And that's a really fundamental principle. You know, it's the first thing is to understand that it truly is possible for us, that there's something special in each and every one of us, and that there's greatness in each of us. We can do some really cool stuff if we are willing to throw ourselves out there and live life by the heart. If you live and direct your life through your heart, then you find that your head can keep you safe on that heart-chosen journey and that heart-chosen compass direction. But if you flip it the other way around and you make choices with your head and then you get all emotional once you're on that path, that's all messed up. That doesn't work. So you got to be willing to let go, let loose, and just go have some fun. That's really important.
I would 100% agree, man. There's so much here. I know we don't have enough time. I knew we didn't have enough time before, but I know even more so now. We're going to have to hang out. I actually have friends up there in Logan, so next time I come up, we'll have to do something. But so yeah, funny story is I actually was going to be in landscape architecture because my original dream got shut down. So my original dream was to be a motivational speaker, which I am now, or an inspirational speaker. I love public speaking. I would do it for free just because I enjoy it so much. Like there's nothing more exhilarating to me, almost like a comedian, just being up there and it's entertainment, but it's education and it's life-changing. I love it. Every part of it I love. But when I got told that, hey, if you do that, then you're never going to see your family, right? You might make money, but you'll never see your family. You're always going to be on the road. And so that was the lie that I got told if I chose that career. So then I decided to think, well, I like landscaping. I enjoy working with my hands. So I actually was going to go into landscape architecture. But the reality is that lifestyle is harder on your body, and it still sucks because you still are working with deadlines, and it just ultimately wasn't what I wanted to do. So I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. So that's how I got into finance, and now I work in finance. But so a few things that I want to highlight, things that are cool about your system. I want to get your feedback there because now your kids. How old is your oldest?
20.
20. Wow, you do not look that old. So this is good. You look like you're about 25. Maybe 35. This is good. I guess if I matched up the hours, it's good. But so you saw your kids go through high school then. Now they're going through college. What's the difference? Like, how impactful was it that you had the opportunity and option to select selective interest and narrow down, buckle down on what you were actually interested in your formal education, rather than just being required to take a bunch of stuff that you weren't interested in? What's the trade-off or benefit in either one?
I look back at university, and I'm not sure it really did a lot of help for me. You know, if you're going to go work for someone and you have like a degree of some kind, let's say you're an engineer or an attorney or something like that, maybe you're in finance. Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's totally needed because we need the world to have qualified people to keep us in line and to go in the right direction. Those who are more creative, those who are inventive, those who need to create commerce and be captains of industry, you do not need university for that at all. It's just not needed. And everything that I've just learned through street smarts. I don't think I really carried much with me out of university at that point. Nowadays, maybe the courses are a little bit better, but still, I paid no more than 10 grand for my bachelor's degree. Nowadays, what is it, like at least 20 times that price?
Yeah,
absolutely. Like what's that?
It's like 40 grand for a bachelor's degree right now.
Yeah, crazy. Like you don't need that debt. That just sets you back with a burden that is really just slowing you down. There's some great resources online that you can do a university degree through YouTube and then just get at it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was just curious because you got to see your kids go through a certain type of education, and you went through it something different where you had a little bit more selection. So I was curious there. Now, one thing, you say you love marketing. So I have a question because I get to ask this all the time. People come to me because of my career field and they're like, I don't like selling stuff. I don't like whatever they think they don't like. And so I'm curious, in your life, what would you say is not marketing? Like, is there anything that you can think of that's just like, yeah, that clearly is not an act or of marketing in any personal, faith, business, fit? Like, is there anything that's not some form of marketing?
I suppose you're right. Yeah, I suppose that it applies to everything. It's really how you present things to people to make it compelling, and also their own idea, like raising kids. You're always trying to convince your kids that it's their idea.
Right. And that's just influence, right? So it's interesting because I get this all the time. Well, I don't like selling. I'm like, look, you're trying to sell me on the idea that you don't like selling. Like, that's the definition of sales. You're trying to convince me that you're right and I'm not. And I'm trying to convince, like, of course you like selling. You just don't see it as selling for whatever reason. And so for the reason I ask it that way is, in my experience, when I started looking at marketing in that brain space, it opened up the ability to do something that was really innovative in marketing because nobody's thought of it, because I'm taking a principle that applies maybe in parenting and I'm applying it to business, or I'm applying business to parenting, or whatever it is. I'm taking the service industry of HVAC, heating and cooling, and I'm taking that model and I'm applying it to essential oils, or, you know what I mean? Like, when you see everything as equally as like, hey, this is all marketing, it allows your brain to go different places and make connections that you wouldn't make if you're just like, this is the only thing that's marketing, this little area of existence.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, that's very, very true. Influence is the right way to put it. Absolutely. And it's fundamental to our ability to create the world that we want to create for ourselves. You know, we're not here to be acted upon, right? You know, this principle. We're here to act. We're here to create. We're here to be creators. We're gods in embryo, and we're here to do marvelous things. You know, it's not just possible for us to do good things and great things, but it's actually necessary. We're not our most joyful self. We're not our most fulfilled self until we actually magnify who we are and become and discover, you know, our great potential. There's so many people who are really content with their life, very content, but there's something missing. They're not truly happy. And why are they not truly happy? It's because they're not living a life of service to other people. They're living for themselves, right? So Viktor Frankl, he said that when people can't find their deep purpose, their calling in life, their meaning in life, they distract themselves with pleasure. They're out doing pastime pursuits. They're out hunting, or they're out playing basketball, or they're out socializing with friends. And that's what they fill their discretionary time with. And that's all good. And we all need some of that. I'm going to have a good time with some family today. But if that's all you've got in your life, you're not happy. You're not your most joyful self. And here's the other thing that holds people back is our bodies. Like, if you're not exercising almost every day of your life, if you're not eating healthily every day of your life, good nutritional food, getting rid of the sugars and the alcohols and all that kind of stuff, the refined processed foods, if you're not shunning that from your life, then the only version of yourself that you know is a semi-miserable, semi-irritable, ornery person. And that's who you think you are. You're not that person at all. Like, you're a very energetic, very enthusiastic person under all that. You just got all these layers of crap that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think one of the things that I'm going to tie two principles that you spoke about in your story, and then I'm going to ask a question here. So one is you had spoken about when you were in selling washing machines, your job and how you saw marketing, and this goes in line with there's a saying that I've heard and I love it. It's called WIIFM, right? So the what's in it for me, right? You got to figure out and speak to them in their language. They're listening to WIIFM. They're listening with ears of what's in it for me. That's all they care about. And so it isn't about, all you have to do is present the information in a way that they can see what's in it for them. So when he was selling the washing machines, he said, hey, this is how many hours, rather than comparing price, because on price, he's going to lose, right? Or even quality. Most people, if they've never had something really of quality, it's hard for them to understand and comprehend how much better quality something is. And so this is both the beautiful thing and the absolute worst thing about statistics, financial analysis, all this stuff. You can take information and you can present it literally however you want, because it's all about what thing you're comparing. Like for instance, he took the price and he said, look, here's the price, but let's talk about how many hours or how many years you're going to get out of each thing. And then we're going to divide that into the price. See, it's actually cheaper per year to have the new one. And they're like, okay, so if I think about it this way, in 6 years, I'm gonna have to buy a new one. In another 6 years, I'm gonna have to buy 4 of these $800 washers over the next 20 years. Why not just pay that right now, less though, and get a better washer? So I'm having a better experience and I'm having the same thing. I had to make that decision 2, maybe almost 3 years ago. I had these older cars because I was taught frugality, own your car. This is the things I was taught. But what was happening is I had these older cars, 10, 12 years old, not super old, but they were costing me repairs. And at the end of 2 years, I track my money meticulously. I could see that for the cost of repairs, I could be leasing a brand new car every month, like pay a $300 lease for a brand new car. So now I'm driving the best, the safest car, and it's costing me the same as if I had an older car that I quote unquote owned, but had to repair every month. So it's like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense anymore. So now I lease my cars because that's what financially makes sense to me. But it's all about being able to draw those parallels. So part of that is you educated them on their decision and went and let them make their decision. So this is where it comes down to, I personally, I love talking about faith in relation to everything in life. And the reason is, in my mind, if I can't, I'm not perfect, okay? So let's, massive disclaimer, blinking light, okay? I'm not perfect. And I do my best to live a principle-based life. And what I mean by that is, if you're using a principle or discussing a principle with me, if I can apply that to my faith, my fitness, my business, my family, the fun things that I like, if I can apply that principle across the board, I'm on board with it. If I find anywhere where it's inconsistent, there's a very low chance that I actually follow through or adopt that principle into my life. Very, very low. And that's fine. It works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. But with this, I think this is a principle that's consistent, and that is educate and let them make their own decisions. My personal perspective of God is not that he's this divine being that's interfering in our life, but rather that he is giving us direction, giving us the education, and giving us the confidence at best, like helping us believe in ourselves so that we can go do the action. He's not acting in our lives. He's educating us and letting us go act in our lives. I think that's a big, important distinction. I'm curious what your thoughts are about that when it comes to your personal faith and what you've discovered in business.
Yeah, no, that's a really good principle. There's a great leader who we both know who said once that teach the people true principles and they'll govern themselves. We're here not to be just told what to do, right? We're here to create some great life for ourselves, because there's more. Quantum physics tells us that you cannot create energy from nothing. It has to always exist, right? Like if you have fire, it's going to turn into heat. Okay, it's going to drift off as heat, or sound can change into heat, things like that. So energy is never created or destroyed. It's just always existing, right? So a lot of people tie their identity to their race, right? There's a big racial movement nowadays, which everyone has their own opinion on. I won't go into that. But we are so much more than our paint job. Like paint job, it's skin deep. Like what we are inside is what we're talking about, is who we are. How can you identify who you are with how many freckles you have on your face or what pigment is on your skin? That's just absurd. That's like saying I identify myself with bald people. That's ridiculous. Right? So physics tells us that we're 99.9999% the energy between particles. And if you took all that energy out and you left particle, we are the size of a speck of dust. That is how significant the spiritual side of us is, the energy amongst matter. And it's a thriving river of energy. We are just amazing beings, right? And so if that's energy, we are mostly energy. That was not created at conception. Physics tells us that has always existed. So we've always existed before we were born. We'll always exist after we were born. This life is just a very small piece of it. And so that's why, like, I have 4 kids in my family. They're all wonderful kids, and they're all so different. Why are they all so different? Because they all existed. It's not like I created them from scratch. That didn't happen. They'd all be pretty similar if that happened. So there is a lot of potential in us. There's a lot that we can create for ourselves. But the thing is, there's so much tribulation that we have to go through, so much trial that we have to go through. So getting back to Jaybird, for example, that was a rough thing. Like, it took, we were doing this wireless headphone thing for 10 years, and it wasn't until the last 3 years that people really started to take notice. 7 years, like 7 years of like, are we ever going to make it? 7 years of, are we going to meet payroll this week? 7 years of chip on my shoulders, trying to prove the world wrong that yes, wireless headphones are going to go somewhere. Everyone's saying, nah. I had lunch. I had lunch with the CEO of Skull Candy, Rick Alden, very early on, 2009. This is, what was it before? It was about 2009. This is roughly when iPhone was just barely a thing, right? And before Android was a thing. iPhone did not have Bluetooth stereo music. You could not stream music from a Bluetooth phone over Bluetooth, from an iPhone over Bluetooth. It wasn't possible. You had to have a little adapter in the bottom, a dongle. It was pretty silly. This was the world that we started wireless headphones in. Anyway, so I had lunch with Rick, went up to Park City, and we walked over. We got some pizza, this big slices of dripping pizza. It was beautiful that day, man. Good seasoning on it and everything. And he said to me, look, we're not going to get into wireless headphones because it's like 2% of the market. Most of it was us. Tiny little Jaybird going against everyone. And he's like, it's just too small. It doesn't make any sense for us to go wireless. Like, this is the CEO of Skull Candy. He had an opportunity to totally dominate wireless headphones. And you look in Best Buy nowadays, like, it's the other way around. It's 98% wireless and maybe 2% wired, right?
It's hard to, like, most phones don't even accept wired anymore.
That's right. That's right. So that's the vision that we had, and we just knew this was going to happen. And we wanted to be part of that. We wanted to really make it a really special thing. Secure fit, miniaturized, fashionable, sweat-proof, epic music that you could tune to your own desire. So even though you got headphones with a certain audio performance, you could actually tweak it to whatever sound you want. And that's what Jaybird's all about, is all of those aspects. We had a lifetime warranty against sweat, all kinds of different cool things that we were trying to do and did. And we eventually became the go-to headphone because everyone else was farming their success. Here's the other thing that holds people back, is they find something in their life that they're good at, that they're an expert at, and they farm it. They think, I'm going to be specialized in this, and this is what people are going to come to me for. Like, maybe you could do that when you're 70. You've still got a runway of so much to grow and discover about yourself. Like, keep going. Don't be an expert, be a student. The best entrepreneurs consider themselves students of their craft, not an expert. You go to corporate environments, big companies like Logitech, most of your executives in there, they think of themselves as an expert. But once you become an expert, you stop learning. You might not realize it, but you really do stop learning because you think you know it all. And no one can say anything that'll teach you anything. So always be a student of your craft.
I want to ask a follow-up question. There is, back from a marketing perspective, you probably heard of like the hero's journey and helping somebody go through that enlightenment or epiphany bridge so that they can launch your product. And a lot of that is, a lot of it's based in the idea that, hey, I've gone through this. I'm now an expert, and I'm going to be, or I'm the Jedi Master. I'm the Yoda, and now I'm going to teach you how to become the Yoda of whatever it is you're teaching. So, and there's tons of different brand archetypes. Okay, so I understand that, but how would you market to somebody and say, look, I'm a student, but although I'm a student, I'm still able to lead you because I'm learning new things, but I can teach you what I've already learned. How do you create a marketing string that has that messaging or that feel to the brand?
You've got to let your performance speak for itself. You should never put yourself in the position of the teacher until you've actually demonstrated that you can produce results. Yeah, you got to work at it. You got to put some runs on the board first before you can really expect to teach someone else, right? You got to be proven. So once you've been able to do that, but I'm still a student.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Cool. So I want to hit one more thing because I think this is a huge. You said something like when you said, "Hey, you see these things on Facebook, fail your way to success," right? I think, in my experience, and I'd love to hear your experience. You're older, wiser, and you've dealt with more people in different industries. In my experience, people sometimes hear that. It doesn't hit their subconscious, so it floats on their conscious, and then they again, in my experience, they get complacent in failure because they think, oh, well, if I just keep failing long enough, I'll succeed, and they lose their drive to adjust and make the adjustments necessary to eventually succeed. So they get complacent in failure while saying, oh, well, I'm fully living that failure to success, right? But they're not actually trying to succeed anymore. They gave up trying to succeed after like the second or third failure. Now they're just failing, and they're having this facade so they can look like one day I'll make it as an entrepreneur, but they're not going anywhere. Like, they're just complacent in failure. So like, how would you recognize that early on inside yourself? And what do you do about that? Like, how do you actually jog your memory enough to recognize, no, I actually need to make some adjustments?
I've so been there. I remember in high school, I was on the high school basketball team in Australia, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, here in America, if you're on the high school basketball team, you're like a really good player. In Australia, at least back in those days, like this is like 20 odd years ago, if you wanted to play basketball, great, you're on the team. You're starting five. Right? So I'm in this fast break with the captain of the team, who is a good player. His name is Josh Standen, and solid, great guy, good friend. And he's dribbling the basketball up the court, and I'm in the other lane. We're heading towards the hoop. Lots of people in the stadium. I got a girl that's really cute that I really like. I want to impress her. My mum and dad are there, and he passes the ball to me. I'm like, dude, you're the better player. You shoot it. So I throw it back to him. He's like, no, man, this is easy. This is a layup. Everyone's up the other end of the court. And so he passes it back to me. I'm like, no, you have it. So it's like hot potato all of a sudden. So I was afraid to look silly, right? I didn't want to miss the shot and look like I couldn't play and look really silly. But what did I do by having that mindset? I actually attracted that very thing. Here I am playing ping pong with a basketball, and everyone's watching, and I'm looking so silly. And there you go. So the fact is, everyone misses a shot in every single game. So, and you can't get to success until you actually go through that whole learning curve of failing your way there, right? So I have to make the shots, otherwise I'll never be able to make a shot, right? So it's really important that we get past our fear of failure. So it took me a long time, right, to get through that, and eventually, I'm kind of mediocre in basketball nowadays. I can hold my own and play all right with some guys nowadays. But back then, I was just too intimidated, too stuck in fear. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, they are really great in what they teach. That is that we shouldn't be defined by the memory of our past. We should be defined by a vision of our future. And Sam, you're here nodding your head. We both love this stuff, I can tell.
Yeah. It's true. I can't get enough of it, honestly. This is what I studied. I studied neuropsychology in school and ended up in finance because I figured that's a good place to have an impact that I wanted. But neuropsychology and like the quantum physics of how we are as beings and our potential, like, I don't know how that doesn't excite people. It doesn't make sense to me how it doesn't like just turn you on and get you excited. But that's funny.
I'm with you, man. Alexander Dulles, he said, a man or woman who doubts himself is like a man who enlists in the ranks of his enemies and bears arms against himself. And there's an old African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, then there's no enemy without that can be of any harm or any threat to us. So when we really let go of those fears and those things that hold us back, and we just live by the heart, have some courage, right? We look at people who are courageous, who are good, strong leaders. It's not that they're not fearful. Of course they're afraid. Of course they don't know. Of course they're uncertain. They don't know if they're going to win or lose. But what drives them is a dream. What drives them is the fact that they're lit up and inspired by something really special, by a cause that is greater than themselves. Maybe they're fighting for the freedom of their family and their kindred and their village or whoever it might be. Think of Braveheart, right? William Wallace. He would have been afraid for his life for sure, like fear is still there, but yet he was inspired by a cause that was way more than his own life. So when you tap into that, you think of Dr. Martin Luther King and the cause that he was inspired by. He felt very clearly that he had a calling on his life and he was fighting for that calling. He was a freedom fighter. So the people who are happy in this life, the people who are really living are people who are fighting for something. So you got to find something that really lights you up. So many people nowadays think of entrepreneurship as just finding something in China, throwing a label on it and selling it online and hoping you sell some stuff. And you just become Stuff Mart, just like Walmart is. Like, you got to think beyond that. Anything that we do, we got to try to think, how can we create value for people? When I was working with Best Buy with Jaybird, I developed a really good friendship with an executive there called Mark Maziniak. And he taught me a really important principle early on. And he said that, Judd, when we put Jaybird on the shelf, we have to think to ourselves, what is justifying that? Like, why is Jaybird there? It can't just be another Beats copy or a Bose copy or a Sennheiser copy or a Plantronics copy or a Jabra copy. Like, what are you doing, Judd, with Jaybird that really makes you different, that is meaningful, that has a unique value proposition that can justify you being on the shelf? And you've got to be able to do that in anything you do, right? So that I really embraced that early on, and it helped Jaybird. Of course, we already had the mission of being wireless and leading a wireless revolution, which we were able to do, which is just blows me away. Like, when you believe you can do something, there's still these uncertainties and these doubts, and you don't know if it's going to happen. And when it actually happens, you're like, even though I believed it, I can't believe it. It's quite weird. But yeah, make sure you're of value. Make sure you're doing something great in the world. And that is how you tie that back to being inspired by a cause or a mission where you can actually do something really amazing for the greater good, to serve the world, to serve those people around you, and do something lovingly disruptive in their life. Do something that'll really turn it upside down. And so, there's that moment of every day where you go for your run, your gym workout, your bike ride, or even just personal time, right? Those are very special moments for us all. And we try to get to them, if not every day, at least every couple of days. And it really elevates us. It brings us back to ourselves. And so Jaybird, our whole idea was that experience and transforming that and creating a renaissance of that moment by having wireless music that was just secure fit, that it's like you were listening to music, like it was an orchestra around you or something, without having any tethered to anything. And that was a really, really awesome experience to create that for the first time for a lot of people in the world, and really turn their life upside down in that way. And that's why so many people got behind it. We didn't have any money for marketing, so they were our megaphone, and it was incredible to see it all play out. So yeah, when you get inspired by a cause, those are the kinds of things that can happen in your life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message. I'm curious then how, because I think there's people who are listening to this who have a dream like that, or at least they've thought about it, they've fantasized about it. but it's still so far distant because they are chained to either corporate America or they just don't even have a job at all. Right now, 40 million people are out of work. How did you financially float that? Obviously, you had a few tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt, but for 7 years, how do you float a company, startup, essentially a tech startup of some sort, product, widget? Like, how do you do that for 7 years before really gaining any serious ground? How do you sell out your spouse on that? How do you sell out your family? How do you put blinders up for everybody who's consistently telling you you're going to fail? How do you really overcome that and financially make it through? Because I think a lot of people, they want to do that, but the fear of financial failure is, it's one thing if it's for yourself. I learned this when I got married and had kids. I had no problem. Like I love risky type employment, commission only, like what I can produce is what I can get. The moment you have like kids, other mouths to feed, other people depending on you, the quote unquote, which I don't believe is security, but the quote unquote security of a job becomes more appealing. And you have to be able to calm the fears of the other people around you to have them buy into that. So how did you do that financially?
So principle wise yeah, first of all, let's get tactical in a second, but principle wise, you have to be hungry. You have to be tapped into something that really lights you up. And when you're lit up by that calling on your life and you feel like you've tapped into possibly what one of those callings might be at this moment in time, man, like if you believe that, you really, really believe that, you get real hungry and you get real inspired, and that drives you through and you create solutions through the help of God, for sure for me. You create solutions to problems, and it's amazing how many miracles will happen along the way because you're trying to do something great, and you're fully dedicated, you consecrated yourself to it, and it opens up a whole new world to you. And if you've never lived like that, I really challenge, for the listeners, if this is a new concept for you, really, really take this to heart, because that's where the secret of a great, rewarding, joyful, fulfilling life is, and a life of purpose and a life of contribution is living in that inspired state where you're really lit up by something. But tactically wise, here's a principle that I think is often lost in this world today, where people seem to think that they need to get an investor to get through financially. You don't need an investor to get through financially. It's just simple as this. Revenue, or your income, minus expenses is what you got left. And if that's always balanced, if you've always spending less than what you're earning, you'll be in business forever. Like you will be in business forever. So that's what you got to do. So when your revenue is low, the key is to not be spending money. So we sold all the furniture in our house. We were talking about this before we joined the call, but we sold all the furniture in our house. We had a family with 4 kids and we had one car between us. We sold one of our cars, and our neighbors actually lent us a sofa because they felt sorry for us. And a lot of the stuff I was doing myself. I was on Skype with our supplier in Asia in the nighttime. Then I was in the office during the day. I was working with our customer support team and my operations manager and my sales guy and working with product development, and we were working on warehousing, and we were working on this and that. And it was just nonstop. But I was lit up and inspired by this cause, right? I was moved by it, truly moved, and I was hungry. And when you're hungry and when you're really into it, you'll do anything and you become a beast and you can just do cool stuff. It's really hard. And you've got to always check yourself and make sure it's you're going on the right path and everything. But tactically, that's the secret. The lifeblood is spending less than what you're earning, but also investing in growth and development and becoming better than what you currently are as well. And that's a delicate balance to tread. But here is the thing too. If you're a commodity, like anyone else, if you're doing the same thing as everyone else, that's really hard because you constantly got pressure on your margin up here, right? So you have to find ways to be meaningfully different, meaningfully unique, and ways to disrupt people's paradigm for their life in a meaningful way. How do you do that? How do you come up with those kind of ideas? Once again, you got to stop focusing on what's out there today. You got to stop focusing on the how-tos, stop focusing on the tips, the next hot tip and that kind of thing. You got to come back within yourself, be very introspective and really be very reflective on what's most important to you. Those gifts and those passions that are in you that you got to discover. You may not have discovered all of them yet, so you got to excavate your life and try new stuff. I've just jumped into a farm over the last few years. I knew nothing about farming. Before that, I knew nothing about headphones. Before that, I knew nothing about medical records. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, the things that I've done, every single thing has been a new thing that I knew nothing about. Yet that fresh perspective gives you a fresh perspective and a new way to look at things that no one else has been able to do. And that's when you come in with something meaningful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that. One thing that I think it really comes down to the thing you started out with, and that's living a consecrated life. That's generally almost like a religious term. People talk about it more in religion, the idea of a consecrated life. But I think that is a principle that needs to apply everywhere. Like, what have you consecrated and said, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to find my fulfillment and my meaning today. And I think another thing to couple along to the back of that is what you find meaning in today, you don't have to find meaning in tomorrow, right? So I created a journal called the Fulfillment Journal. You can find it on Amazon and a few other places. But the point is, it's really simple. It's a daily journal. You list out your top 3 goals, what you want to accomplish, the top 3 things you're grateful for, and then you strategize about how are you going to experience fulfillment that day, right? Like, what are you going to do that day that gives you fulfillment? Not just short-term happiness, but like what, and I define fulfillment in one of 3 ways, right? Either I was laughing uncontrollably, I was so happy. I was crying, I was so happy. Or I have butterflies, like when I first went on a date with my wife, like I'm so Twitter-pated about the idea of what I'm going to be doing, okay? Like, if you're that, like, if that's what defines fulfillment, these intense, full-body emotional reactions to joy, if that's fulfillment, then how are you planning that daily into your life so you can have that? And then after you do that, you journal about how did you experience fulfillment. So you planned it out in the morning, then you said, hey, how did it go? How did that experience go? And then in the future, how will I make it better? So in the future, so now we're reprogramming our subconscious about what the next time we experience that experience, how's it going to look and be even more fulfilling next time? And the way I do that, so one of the beginning things is for 10 minutes in each area, faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun, write down for 10 minutes things that fulfill you in each of those areas. So 10 minutes a topic, and then just schedule it in for 30 days, fulfillment every day in your life. And I think that's where it comes down to, like, that type of consecrated life and living, what fulfills you. The other thing is, if you think his daily schedule sounded crazy, selling everything, willing to sacrifice everything, some people, they think they've never experienced that. So tell me what you think of this example. This is how I explain it to somebody. Like, this is how excited and hungry you got to get. If you've ever been going on a trip to Disneyland, I think more universally Christmas, right? Where you can't sleep because you're so excited about what's going to happen the next day, right? When he talks about being hungry and fired up, like, that's how hungry you have to be. So hungry that you're so excited about what you're going to do the next day, you can't sleep. Like, it's not that he didn't want, like, that he wanted to sleep for 10 hours, but he forced himself out of bed and worked 6 hours. That's not what happened. He was so hungry, he didn't want to sleep. Sleep is something that has to happen to stay alive, but you really just want to keep progressing your vision. I mean, would you agree with that? Or what tweaks would you say?
Yeah, you're getting me excited now, man. Yes, Sam, that's true. Yeah, like when you wake up every morning and you feel like it's you've just woken up and there's presents under the tree. You can't wait to get into what you're doing, and there's a lot of rubbish and crap you have to deal with. Yeah, I know, but it's the overall mission, it's the overall cause that just lights you up. And I'm not even a morning person. It takes me a little while to get going, but I know I've got some exciting things in the day. I totally agree with that. That's powerful.
Yeah, for me, that's what it was for me. And the times where I've been fully inspired like that, I've been up at 3, 4 in the morning. I can't sleep. I'm making notes, or I'm studying for something, or I'm writing out journals or books that I just want to help get my thoughts out to the world. And so I think that's a good gauge of if something that oftentimes your dream is that powerful if you think about it, but sometimes we just don't think about our dreams enough. We get bogged down in the monotony of making it happen that we forget to focus on the overall vision. And sometimes you just got to do that morning and night, multiple times during the day. Schedule that in. If you're somebody who's struggling with keeping that in the forefront of your mind, schedule it in where you're going to review your overall mission, dream, vision statement of where you're headed. So I know that one of your goals right now is to help create 1,000 millionaire businesses or legacies. If we wanted to be one of those 1,000, okay, let's say we love what we hear today and we want to be one of your young Padawans where you're going to teach us everything you know, where do we get in contact with you? Where do we start following and become part of that movement and contribute to that?
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, while I was farming over the last few years, I sold Jaybird to Logitech and they took over. And so I'm very passionate about self-sufficiency and truly standing independent and free from anything in the world. And so I got this beautiful farm with great self-sufficiency there. And as I'm doing that, I'm trading Bitcoin because I was trading way before Jaybird. Now I'm finished with Jaybird, so I'm able to spend more time on it. And I came up with a method of trading Bitcoin that's really lifestyle friendly. It's 12 trades a year on average, which is like once a month or so. It's so like easy. And then it's doubling money every 12 months. Sorry, every 6 months. It's doubling money every 6 months, which means if you started with $5,000 today, based on the historical performance, if that were to play out into the future, that would turn into $1 million within 4 years. Isn't that wild? Pull out a calculator, double $5,000 every 6 months.
That's crazy.
4 years, you get to $1 million. So that's what I've created. I've created a system that does that, and I've got an app. So my mission has always been like with my employees through my businesses, I've always wanted to help them become financially free. Because I remember being an employee of once on my own that I wanted to be financially free as well. And I didn't know how to get there, and I had to work so hard to get there. And now I've got a system that doesn't have all the risk of business, that doesn't have all that uncertainty of business. Like, it's really strange economic times right now. We don't know what's going to happen next year. So if you're trying to start a new business right now, whoa, risk is on. Like, it's really risky. So this is a way for you. Our average loss is 6%. Our average win is 56%. So if you're wrong even half the time, like, you're going to smash it. You're going to do really good with those stats. So that's why this is such a powerful tool. This is why in this particular kind of world environment, this has come out at the perfect time so that I can help 1,000 households become truly financially independent. If you want to be financially independent today, you have to be a millionaire. After tax, after your mortgage paid off, after your credit card's paid off, and after you've got a year like runway of money in the bank so you don't have to worry about a layoff, that's all you got. You must be a millionaire if you want to be financially independent today. So this is a vehicle that'll get you there if you can pull together $5,000 or more. Like, more is even better. This is a vehicle that helps you to take steps towards that. I can't promise any kind of performance into the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but our back-tested performance is really remarkable. It's called unlisted.io. That's the website, Unlisted Project. And I'm only taking on 1,000 people. After that, it's going to be It's going to be like you have to know someone to get in. We're already at 300 people. So, we're not far from filling up. We've only been going for about a month or two. And if you're interested in this, you have to act pretty quick.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I think that the people who see the value and see that that's what they want to do, they're going to be there and they're going to be taking advantage of that. And when he says you have to be a millionaire, it was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, "Oh, well, after so many years of my business, I'll be a millionaire." It's like, okay, but are you a cash millionaire, or you have like a business that you, through certain forms of multiplication, your business is worth $1 million, right? It's so funny when people are like, and this is why I made that joke. And maybe you actually did walk away with 95 million, which means you sold your company for a lot more than 95 million. I don't know how much you walk away with, but generally what I've seen is after those companies get sold, the big number that gets said is not how much actually gets put in the pocket. Is that fairly accurate with what happens to you as well?
I never got an investor on board, which is why the journey was so taxing on me.
Sure.
But that I would do it the same way all over again, because you get into business to be your own boss. You look at almost every entrepreneur, a big driving factor for them is that I would rather work 100 hours a week for myself than 40 hours for someone else. Why? Because they want to be lit up by a cause that they create. Because the vision and the inspiration that you get, no one else is going to think the same way as you, because it's yours. That is your thing. Denzel Washington says that thing, that itch that's in your heart to do that thing that's sitting on the shelf, that's collecting dust, that you haven't gotten to yet, that you know you got to do. That's God's promise to you sent beforehand, that it's already yours. So there's this thing that's placed in our hearts as entrepreneurs that we want to get done, right? So anyway, I didn't ever get an investor, and we did it all ourselves. It was tough work to bootstrap it, but we had some key employees who had a portion of that. But I actually wrote myself a check back in 2013 or about 2013 for $86 million. Just like Jim Carrey did a $10 million check for himself and got that $10 million from Dumb and Dumber. So I'm going to do some random crazy number that I can't even imagine experiencing. 86 million. That's silly. Oh, let's just put it down. Let's have some fun. And then a few years later, there it is. We sold it for 95, and almost all of that we saw and realized it's cool.
Wow. That's incredible. That's cool. Awesome. So yeah, go check out Unlisted. Is it a website? So unlisted.io, is that a website, or is that just a Google and you'll find your way to it?
Yeah, that's the domain name. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of unlisted.com, it's unlisted.io. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. No, and these links, they'll be in the show notes here, to his Instagram, to his website, and then also to this unlisted.io if you'd like to participate. Obviously, I'm not making recommendations. That would be no good, but it's the more you know, the more you can act on. And the more you get educated on, the more you can make your own decisions. And he's already told you that before this ever came up in this episode. You already know that that's his MO. He wants to educate you. He wants to help you understand the benefit of making that happen. I think what I was going to say earlier is $1 million. If you're just a millionaire right now, and a millionaire is defined as $1 million, that's not enough to retire. That's not enough to be financially independent. And maybe if it's invested the way you're saying to invest it, but like right now, you'd need probably I guess it depends on your age, but if your average age is 35 to 45, you really need like $5 to $6 million to be able to pull off enough with inflation, compounding, and all that jazz to make it in this world. Otherwise you're going to be in for a real unhappy surprise. These people are trying to retire at 65 years old and they got $250,000 in their bank account. Maybe. Yeah, they aren't retired. Like they're going broke in retirement. There's just no hope for them. So we got to find solutions to help them earn more income that isn't as taxing, still gives them a lifestyle that they want, but gives them the income that they need as well.
That is very, very true. The first business that I sold for about $1.5 million, and I was 31, and I knew straight away, like, this was really amazing, but I knew that wasn't going to get me through the rest of my life. There's just no way.
That's like enough to barely start another business.
Yeah. So we went broke starting Jaybird with that money.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So the next section is called Legacy on Rapid Fire. It's like a game show-ish, 1 word to 1 sentence answers. And we're gonna bust through this quick. You ready for that?
Go.
Okay. Legacy on Rapid Fire. Question number 1. What do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Time.
Okay. Define time.
Sequence of events, one after the other. So as I get the work done, it'll come to pass.
Okay. Awesome. And what do you believe is your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life?
My family.
Awesome. What's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished in your life?
Jaybird by far.
That's so cool. And what if you were to say, do you have like one secret habit, mindset, or belief that you hold close to your heart that you believe has enabled you to become as successful as you are?
There's there's a teaching from the ancient American Indians, and it's the concept that if we live right, if we live with integrity, and if we look to the spiritual strength that we have in our life to guide us to where we need to go, and if we live with integrity according to the principles, and we hold ourselves in alignment with that spiritual compass that we have, all things will work together for our good, both spiritually and temporally. And so temporally meaning financially and anything else in your life. So that promise that is given in that principle is absolutely true. And when we believe that we are highly favored, when we believe that we are truly blessed, and when we believe that we have something special in us and there's great things and great potential within us and we can do all things, then that truly does happen.
Yeah, I love it. I think belief is the number one thing that holds people back. And as my mission, kind of the purpose of this podcast, is to help you and help everybody believe more in themselves, recognize the giftedness that's in them, and believe more in themselves. If that's all that we can accomplish on this podcast, if we can help one person believe more in themselves, it's a win. If we help more, that's way better, you know. But I think belief is where it has to start, about what you believe in the most. So if there was 2 books that you would recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience that could help them, one, understand their belief and help them believe more, and there's really no restriction. If you want to say religious books, that's fine. You do whatever you feel is honest and real to you. That's what we want to know.
I'm glad you just said that, because James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, he's famous for doing the 50-50-50, which is 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days. Can you believe that? That is intense. And he's right here in Utah, James Lawrence. You got to look him up. Yeah. He was one of the Daybird ambassadors. And he asked me the other day, he's like, hey, what books have really changed your life? And I had to think about that pretty seriously. And honestly, the Book of Mormon, that's core to my faith. And then second is, if I'm going to choose a secular book, there's only one that I can think of that has really changed my life. And that is Richard Branson's Screw It, Let's Do It book. It's a really great book. Just following your heart and just going after instinct rather than just being stuck in your head. I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, love it. So true. I haven't read the Screw It and Do It book, but I've read the Book of Mormon multiple times. And whether for those of you guys who think, I know people listen to this, some are members of that faith and some are not. I grew up homeschooled, and we studied all different types of religions. So I've read most of the Quran. It's a little bit harder to read language-wise. The Torah, I've read a lot of these books. Confucius, Buddhism. Don't think that you're betraying your own religious beliefs to get educated, right? These books of any faith, there's so much value to understand how different people view the world and view their salvation. But 2, and more importantly, there are whole groups of people who have created over thousands of years, thousands of life experiences put into these books, and humans are essentially the same as they were tens of thousands of years ago. You know, so it's not like humans just all of a sudden are different today than they were tens of thousands of years ago. You want to figure out what the heck is going on in the world today? Yeah, just go read. There's a book inside a chapter or a section inside the Book of Mormon. It's called Third Nephi. Just go read it. Give it a little read, or you can go read Ether, right? And it's basically talking about not just what the world's circumstances are that we're in right now, and their experience of that these ancient indigenous people, but also how the 2 groups, what were their mentalities, how'd they feel about each other, how'd they eventually come together, right? It talks about all of that. So if you're looking for peace or direction, it's a great business book. It's a great religious book. It's a great personal book. It's a great personal development book, right? There's all of these things wrapped up into these religious texts. And that's why they're so impactful. It's not necessarily, I don't want to take part in that because some religion believes it. Look, forget if a religion believes it. There's so much value there that you're missing out on. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater if you're unwilling to be educated. So that's my opinion of that.
That is great. That is so true. There's a lot of really good self-help, self-development in the world today. There's this very strong push towards what people call a spirituality. but it is a godless spirituality, and it's essentially it's permission to live the life that you want to live according to your own whims and desires. And whenever a culture or a society has chosen that direction, it's always ended up badly. So just study history. Anytime a culture has just decided as a collective, hey, we're going to accept anything about anyone and about anything that they do, no matter what. It's all about the individual. It's all about what I want and my desires. That's when things go south. So we have to be mature about it. We have to be humble about it. We have to acknowledge that when we're not the kings and gods of our own world, there is something else about life, and we need to recognize that.
Yep, 100%. So here's the final question. This is my favorite question to ask. It's kind of the reason I do this whole podcast, and that is specifically legacy now. So we're going to talk about, we're going to pretend first that you've died. Okay, so this is not the best thing, but given coronavirus, it could happen. Anybody could knock off. No, not really. Most of my family's got coronavirus at this point, and they're fine. They said, many of them said they'd rather have that than the cold. So it makes it even more ridiculous what's going on because of it. That being said, so we're going to pretend you've died, and you get the opportunity to come back 6 generations from now. So this is your great-great-great-great-grandchildren. They're sitting around a table discussing your life and your legacy, what you brought to this earth, and more importantly, what you left on this earth. Okay, what do you want them to be saying about your legacy in 6 generations from now?
I just hope they forget about me. I don't want them talking about me. I would want to talk about them and what their legacy is and what they've done with it. And hopefully, maybe if they've heard about me, then maybe they've taken some inspiration from it. Maybe that has helped create a yes in their heart if they've been given a no by their upbringing. But I would hope that they're doing something great themselves, and I'd like to talk about them, not me.
Awesome. Well, I think that actually is in alignment with everything we've talked about today. Back to the WIIFM, what's in it for me, right? He wants to just talk about you. He wants you to succeed. Any business or anything he's doing, it's to help you have your own personal experience. Even his Jaybird things, if you caught when he was talking about his vision and what it was about, it's like, look, these are precious times where you get to spend time with yourself out doing these things. And what if you could experience the musical lifestyle, right? Where you're just in the forest and you hear music randomly because you're not tethered to anything, but you can have that experience of a musical life in those private times. So it's all about what's best for you and how can he help you accomplish your goals. And I love that about you specifically. Thank you so much for coming on this show. And we're going to have more because we didn't even get to so many good things that you could have shared with us. But yeah, just thank you so much for your time and enjoy the 4th of July.
Yeah, thanks, man. And good luck with the move of your house today.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, we will catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.